I'd like to welcome everyone to the second in the series of the Wake Up Newport Breakfast Series. Tourism is a catalyst. Our scheduled speakers today are Steve Wright, Joe Fox, and Jake Kuchar, and they'll be going in that order. I'd like to thank you all for coming today on this nice windy morning. This breakfast also happens to be sponsored by Spades Family LLC, so I'd like to give a round of applause for Spades. We'd also like to thank the East Side for coming in very early on this morning with this excellent food. We'd like to thank the Chamber for putting on this event, and Kate and Donna for helping out immensely with it. NEK-TV and Todd Pronto and other members of the media who are here, we'd like to thank them also, and we'd also like to thank Rotary for borrowing the desk. Now, the first speaker is Steve Wright. For those of you who don't know him, he's the president and general manager of Jay Peak Resort. He's been with Jay Peak since 2004 and assumed his current role in 2016. He has over 3 decades of experience in the ski industry, including prior leadership roles at Killington Resort. He is also highly involved in the community, serving on the boards of Vermont Ski Association, the National Ski Area Association, Northeast Kingdom Chamber of Commerce, and the Northeast Kingdom Collaborative and North Country Hospital. A resident of Newport, and lives there with his wife and daughter. So please, Warren, welcome.
You want me to stand behind this? There's no mic.
You can walk around, you can ski if you want.
Good morning, everybody. That's a pretty thorough explanation of what I've done in the ski industry the past 3 decades. I wanted to maybe bring everybody up to speed with what's happening at Jay at this point, and give you an update about what we see going forward into the winter, because invariably, the business levels that we see at Jay, can be connected to what we see down here in the town of Newport and in a broader sense within the Northeast Kingdom. So we finished the ski season right around Mother's Day in May. In terms of the length of season, that's typically what we've been doing the last 6 to 8 years. We get into that second weekend in May. In terms of top line revenue, it was a record for us. In terms of visitation, it was a record for us. It was thanks mostly to a January and February that had a tremendous amount of natural snow. No variation of the weather whatsoever. There was no rain, there was no moderation in temperatures. So all of the snow that we got during those 2 months were accretive, right? We usually would see snow melt, we'd get new snow, it would melt again. We go through these freeze-thaw cycles where it would be very difficult to build momentum. But last year it got cold, it stayed cold, and it snowed. And the snow ended up coming on Mondays and Tuesdays. The wind would come in on Wednesday, blow us down. Thursday we'd have a chance to clean it up. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it was great retail weather, and you see that once every couple of decades in the Vermont, New England ski industry for the cadence to be like that. So it lent itself to being able to drive business. So we got into March, things moderated a little bit. We got into April, and the rains came, but we had built up enough of a head start and lead to go into the later innings of the season that we finished really, really strong. Now, as many of you may know, we got into April, and there's starting to be this narrative at the federal level connected to Canadians, and my thoughts here will be as apolitical as I can bring them forward, simply to say that it impacted our business almost immediately. Not tremendously, but we could see that impact almost immediately, both in the business that was coming in at present, but also with respect to business that was being booked into the early part of summer relating to golf. So we got into that post-Memorial Day period, and we were beginning our golf season. I have Jamie Stenger, the director of golf up at Jay Peak, among other things, and we were sort of on the heels of a record golf season. The summer prior, we had done about 14,000 rounds of golf, which was far and away the most that we had ever done up at Jay Peak, and that was connected to a revenue number that was a record as well. So we were somewhat optimistic that we would go into this season, with chasing that same big number. We had some relatively good-sized golf groups on the books, and weekends, the weekend tee sheets, even as early as that first week in June, had started to fill up. And then we started to see some cancellations. We had some of our bigger Canadian groups start to cancel. And as it is, as the type of course that we have, when those Canadian groups cancel, we not only lose the golf rounds, but we lose the lodging revenue, we lose the food and beverage revenue, and any of the other what we call per cap spends that folks spend when they're at the resort, whether it's on retail in our shops, or stop off at a spa, or water park ticket. We lose all of that when the folks don't show up. Then we lost a big group called Les Amis du Golf, which is we didn't lose them per se, but those numbers were down anywhere from 50 to 70%. And that's midweek golf business, which any of you know that are either connected to a golf course or play at a golf course. Those midweek rounds are pretty much irreplaceable. So we went into that summer period continuing to see some drop off in golf world. Then we started to see a drop off in hockey business. I can already tell the vibration here. The news that I'm giving is not really great, so I'll end with something better. We just have to wallow through these difficult messages now. But the hockey business really started to be impacted. We will do 40 to 45 weekends a year of hockey tournaments, and those hockey tournaments range anywhere from 12 to 14 teams all the way up to 18 teams. Half of them generally are Canadian, half of them are within the U.S. Now these U.S. teams like to play at JP because they have access to play against Canadian teams. When the Canadian teams don't show up, or they show up in softer numbers than what we've seen, it impacts the U.S. business as well. So we did continue to have hockey tournaments, but those 14 to 16 to 18 team tournaments were cut down to 8 to 10 teams per weekend. That impacts everything again: lodging, food and beverage, retail, per caps, everything. And there have been 2 or 3 weekends that were traditionally light hockey weekends that got wiped out altogether. So we started to see hockey business being impacted at that point. There was some impact to water park retail business, so folks that would come in from Canada for the weekend, just use the water park, splash around, and then head back home on Sunday. That started to soften up a little bit. I think that was connected to some of the reduction in the hours and the port crossing times that we saw, and some of the narrative that was, the incorrect narrative that was connected to the way that people were being vetted at the borders. There was some news going around that you would show up at the border and you have to show your cell phone, and there'd be an eye scan and a blood test and everything else that ripped through a lot of at least our Canadian segment of our guests. I had done a call around campaign to our season pass holders right around that June, July period when we start to sell next winter's season pass. And I culled a list of people who the year prior had already bought their season pass at that point, who had not yet purchased, simply to ask them questions of, hey, what's happening? Are you planning on buying again? If not, what's going on? I got through to about 60% of the phone calls that I made, and almost to a call, folks said they were still up in the air about whether or not they were going to buy. But the reason behind it was that there was fear there. There was fear that they may not get into the country. There was fear that they may not get back out of the country. And there was fear relating to the process altogether of what it was going to be like when they got to a border and what was going to happen to them. And that was all just, viral communication that, went through that segment of our business. Now the reality is there is no change really at the vetting process of the border. It has stayed largely the same. We're in touch with, our officials at the ports, and they say that they're not doing anything different, and they're not. But it lends itself, to the power of, viral communication, and that bad news really travels. So we've done what we could to take some of that information down, take the temperature down relating to that, and put correct information on our website. But it's, as you can imagine, you're chasing yourself when you're trying to fix that information. So we get into that July period, the August period, where we're well into our season pass sales, and things actually were pretty good. We were pretty resilient in that area. It was not a result of the Canadians coming to the table, but it was a higher index of US guests. We had done a pretty good job of getting into the Stowe and Sugarbush and Smugs, and to a lesser extent the Mad River Glen markets, and peeling some of those folks away to dedicate their season to Jay. And you know, given our conversion policies and our policy around at par promotions for the Canadian market, where we will take Canadian money dollar for dollar on non-margin products, when we would sell a $700 season pass to Canadians and they would pay in Canadian cash, there's a 35% discount already there. So when we replace that pass with a US pass, there's a 35% bump really in what we're taking to the bank. So we saw a 10 or 12% increase in US guests, about the same decrease in Canadian guests, and the net profit that we took to the bottom line was actually a little bit higher. So that was one segment that we continue to see some positive momentum in. We finished the golf season a week ago or so, 2 weeks ago. We ended up having the second best golf season of all time, only a couple of few hundred rounds away from our number one spot. The revenue was a little bit softer than what we had seen, but we had made quite a comeback. Like I said, given that, I think all in all, we probably saw 30% less Canadian golfers show up at the resort this year. So that we sort of put golf to bed at this point. We have put season pass sales pretty much to bed, and that number is better than what we've seen. The part that concerns me is when you look at, you know, forward-looking bookings. So all of our energy now is focused on ski and stay vacations. Who has put deposits down? When have they put them down? When you look at the Quebec break week, and you look at the Ontario break week, and you look at that first week or the last week prior to the Christmas holiday, which is there are a high index of Canadians who are off for that week. All three of those weeks are significantly off, and that's in the 30 to 50% off range at this point. Unfortunately, those are periods that we can't go back to the US market and try to fill in, right? If you have that Quebec break week off, there just isn't vacation time available on the US side of the border, so you're not going to replace that business with US guests. Now, what we have started to see on the weekends, where anywhere from 30 to 50% of the people staying in one of our 1,000 rooms that we have on campus, those 30 to 50% are Canadians. We are seeing that occupancy percentage are still staying pretty high. There's a higher index of US guests that are in those rooms, and we will probably see a net increase to our margins when we take that money to the bank, as long as we continue along sort of that occupancy trend. But the midweek periods where Canadians usually come are definitely a concern to us. One of the ways that we're combating that is taking a pretty aggressive stance with a branding campaign into the Canadian markets, where we're saying that we're open for business and we have, you know, some empathy with what the Canadians are going through. And I think that may pay off, you know, when this tide invariably rolls back. I don't know that it's going to have an impact in the here and now. I think they're happy to hear that message. They expect to hear that message from us. I don't know that it's going to make it so that they decide to book. Those folks who are sort of calibrated in a way to stay in the country, that's not going to motivate them here. One of the things that we're up against, we rely on school trips in the Eastern Township market, South Shore. We rely on those school trips to fill in midweek business for us. And right now the country is essentially paying for those kids to stay in country and take their school ski trips at Canadian ski areas. So it's a little tough to compete against free. I've never had much success against that. So I think that it will, down the road, I think it will be fine. I think that we've got 2 or 3 years of bumps that we've got to navigate, which, you know, that's really nothing new for us up there. The whole place has been a bump the last 10, 12 years, so it's we can sort of take that in stride a little bit. But we've got to be smart about, you know, where we market, who we partner with. We're partnering with VDTM at the state level. They also have a pretty aggressive marketing campaign going into the eastern townships in Montreal to try to save what business that they can. But again, you know, I think a lot of these branding missions that you know, businesses go on and that state associations go on are to protect future business as much as it is to try to motivate business in the here and now, because it might be a bridge too far, even for some of the folks that have bigger marketing clout than we do, like the state, or I'm on the board of the National Skier Association too. And this is a, you know, Canadian ski business into North America is a big issue that we're paying attention to as well. And I think that all of us are you know, gathering around the same thought that what we need to do right now is to protect business, you know, 2 or 3 years down the road. So, you know, like as I said, the golf season is closed. Our summer season was, you know, you roll it all together, was probably 15 to 18% off on a top line basis. We did a pretty good job managing expenses and labor, which, you know, the business that we run up there might be the, you know, biggest business in the area, but every business runs the same way. If you're bringing less in on the top, you've got to figure out a way to take more and protect your bottom. And, you know, if you're a small business, that's figuring out a way to manage labor. Maybe it's an extra shift that the owner has to put through. It's managing expenses. It's having to go without in the short term to try to stay solvent in the long term. It's no different. It's just on a bigger scale. For us, we were able to save on labor. We were able to save on expenses. We've got a plan going forward where we're going to sort of start folks later in the season than what we're used to. Some of the things that need to be new are going to get put off another year. We're going to try to fix some of the things that are broken rather than put in new pieces. And we're going to sort of tighten our belt again and see where things sift out. So we have a lot of confidence that things are going to turn out the right way, but we've got to stay focused in the short term and make sure that they get there. So that's about as positive as I can end with, but I'm happy to take questions from Doug.
Steve, as it relates to Newport and the downtown, or development in the downtown, do you think of something offhand that might be a positive that long-range Newport can do in conjunction with JP that's going to be beneficial to both parties?
Well, you know, I've been part of a few different things back in the Renaissance Corporation days. That was the white whale that we were always trying to wrestle. You know, part of it connects to, you know, we have guests that come on campus for, you know, 2.5 days. They land Friday night, they leave Sunday afternoon based on, you know, what the border hours are doing. They may have to leave a little earlier than that on the Canadian side, make sure they get there. But, you know, can you put something in front of them that motivates them away from the campus down to Newport? And I've always been happy and will continue to be to try to do that. If there is collateral information that you have, or, you know, we have a business section on our website that we, you know, have free listings on there, we'd be happy to do that. The key is connecting to an operational schedule that has your business being open when you get the JP guests down into the streets of Newport. You know, because the first time that, you know, a guest is motivated to come down and go to, you know, I'm just going to pick on Dina, come to the east side, and it's closed, which obviously she never does, but you get my point, is that, you know, somebody's dying for Thai food, and they see on our website that there's a great Thai food place here, and they drive down without checking the hours, assuming that on a Thursday night it'll be open, and the place is closed. I mean, that's you know, it's difficult to get that guest back. And I understand, as well as anybody, the pressures on a small business of having to figure out a way to take that money, like I said before, to the bottom line. But if you're going to go after the business that we have at the Mountain, you just need to make sure that the hours that you have posted, you're living and dying by. You know, if you have to close some days midweek, not a problem. Just make sure those hours stay updated so the guest absolutely knows. And if, like I said, if you have collateral, and you want to post it up at Jay, I'm happy to do that. You can get in touch with you at the chamber and maybe get some of those materials to you and get them to me. I'm happy to have those things posted up there for sure.
And it's a little different structure right now, but Steve does have to leave early. So if anyone else has any questions for him, I'd like to get them to him now, so he'll be able to exit. So, yeah, Terry.
Is Jay close enough to Newport to where you could have like a Stowe or a city that would be sort of a sister city to Jay, where you need a bus system or anything like that would help that?
Well, yeah, I think a bus system between Jay and Newport might pay off. You need to make sure you were still running the businesses so that they were open when the buses landed here. 20 years ago we tried that. We funded some of our own shuttles to come down and take guests down here, and just it never really caught fire. It would need to be something that I think would have to be funded by the state, frankly.
And if we did that, if Newport did that, what kind of businesses do you think you would need for skiers? Because the kind of businesses we may want in Newport may not be the same thing to attract us.
No, it's a good question. I mean, it's a lot of the same though. It's restaurants. I mean, we have a lot of restaurants up there, but for folks that are staying 3 or 4 days, there's only so many days you can go to the Foundry. Right, there's only so many days you can go to Alice's, because we don't have Alice's open. Midweek, we've got 1.5 restaurants open during lower compression, so that would be something. Restaurants would be something that that folks would come down for. I mean, we had plenty of homeowners up there who would always come down to Lago. They would always, one of their nights was always a Lago night. That same affinity is being created with the Thai folk, the folks at Thai food too. Great outdoors, possibly. There could be something there. The movie theater on the weekends could be something there. A lot of times we see folks taking their own cars down to do that right now, but when the weather gets bad, it's an easy decision to stay put.
I would assume your company and you as well have a good idea of what that mix needs to be of certain businesses, whether it's restaurants or shops.
Mm-hmm.
You could help us, encourage.
Yeah, I'm happy to do all the encouraging that I can, for sure. Yeah.
Would it help, for instance, to have exchangeable coupons so that at J, your restaurants would have specials that they could distribute down here for Wednesday night, that kind of thing, and down here, the coupons that would go up there saying that come to our restaurants on Tuesday, and then they would know that it is open and that there's some sort of discount special.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't take any of the traffic coming in that direction. If you have traffic down here, keep it. I don't want any of the guests that are in Newport. Let's get them eating down in Newport. But to your point, having some sort of a coupon book, so some sort of an effort on behalf of some civic organization, either the downtown, the chamber, some hybrid, where you could organize the business community to put offers in a coupon booklet going to guests up at J Peak. Absolutely, we would support that all day long. We put that in check-in packets so that when a guest comes in, they see those coupons. More importantly, what you want to do is have that information to the guest prior to them landing at J Peak, because a lot of times, all of us have families that when you land on a Friday night, a lot of times you're already planning, all right, we're going to ski in the morning, we're going to go après ski, then we're going to go to Alice's, then the next day we're going to go to the spa, this and that. You want to get into their planning set prior to them even getting to JP. So all that to say, I think it's a great idea.
And it wouldn't be a disappointment then when it's open.
No, they know that it's going to be there,
Yeah, so I think the Chamber and Downtown Development have some homework here to work with Steve going forward. Any other questions for Steve before we let him go?
Oh, on the tariff stuff, there's been studies that show that when there's 30% or more on the exchange rate, tourism and things bought across the border drops. What do you see as a ski resort? Do you see that happen if the tariffs weren't there, if we just see the exchange rate?
Well, the exchange rate, I mean, I've only been at J 25 years, so I haven't seen it all, but I've seen enough. And through all of the currency conversion rates, we've still seen a steady stream of guests coming to the mountain. I think you're right, and I've read some of those same reports that say as the currency conversion falls off a cliff, you start to lose momentum. We have insulated ourselves against that because we take the dollar at par. So we are a little bit more insulated against that. I think what we're seeing with Canadians is this aggregation of dread between the narrative, between the ports, between their own economy, all of that collectively keeping them from us. And when I say us, I mean, you know, the tourism economy here in Newport. I think all of it's there. Dan wants me to get the hell out of here.
We have a couple other speakers.
So I'm tackled. But if anybody has any other questions, there's a way to get in touch with me. You can put it through Doug or get in touch with me at sride@jpeakresort.com. I'm happy to answer anything you have offline.
Thank you very, very much, Steve. Our next speaker is Joe Fox, Outdoor Recreation Manager at Northern Forest Center. Joe's the Outdoor Recreation Manager at the regional nonprofit based in Concord, New Hampshire. He's been with the center for 3 years and he lives in Barnet, Vermont. He served at Town of St. Jay as a recreation director for 17 years. He is the founding member of the Caledonia Trail Collaborative and board member of NEK Gravel. So, Joe, thank you.
I'm taking over from Steve. Steve, that was great to hear about JP. It's awesome. Long time Jay skier, and I appreciate all you and your team do up there. Not yet, but I will. Yeah, you have my word. So, there you go. My name's Joe. I work for Northern Forest Center. In 15 minutes, I'm going to try to tell you really quickly about the organization I work for, what we've done here in Newport so far, what we hope to do, and maybe what you can do to promote the outdoor recreation economy in this incredible community. I live in Barnet, Vermont. I've been in the Kingdom since 1996, where I went to school for ski resort management. Spent a lot of time as a sophomore, as a snowboard instructor up at Jay. So this area is near and dear to my heart. Northern Forest Center is a regional nonprofit based in Concord, New Hampshire. We are about 26 years old now, I think. We serve the northern tier of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and New York. And what we focus on is basically bringing vibrancy to rural communities across this entire network, with the forest really as the anchor. And understanding that the forest, this region that we live, sustains us in a lot of different ways, whether that's forest products industry, whether that's tourism, hiking, there's an economic component to things. For some folks, there's a spiritual component, there's a social component, there's a health and wellness component. And when we can keep the forest sort of in a right balance of industry, employment, travel, tourism, steward things appropriately, hopefully this resource can continue to provide for us for a very long time, as it has for millennia. So that's a very broad stroke. Now, in terms of what the Northern Forest Center has actually done, we've supported big international timber companies. We work with communities that are trying to find new and innovative forest products. There was a time where we were heavily invested in things like new and upcoming pellet boilers and helping schools access grants to convert their energy use. We are working with organizations that are exploring utilizing mass timber for both residential and commercial buildings. We have worked with companies that are finding innovative wood fiber insulation. So insulation for homes that meets the same energy standards as typical cellulose or whatever, and has a flame retardant to it. Stuff that is well beyond my knowledge. That is not my department, so to say, but it's fascinating to me. But we also work with communities like Newport Downtown Development. We do capacity building across rural organizations. We've worked on things like wayfinding packages. So if you've been on the bike path here, now you see the Men from Magog Greenway. That was a fun process that we were engaged in. We had I think it was a USDA development block grant or something to that effect. We've been very fortunate to work with private philanthropy, federal funding sources, state funding sources, basically finding money anywhere we can to help communities thrive. So that's sort of, again, very broad stroke, what we do. My role as outdoor recreation director is working with communities across this entire region and looking at how can outdoor recreation be something that helps attract, recruit, and retain people in this region. It's probably not a shock to you that the demographics, particularly in Vermont and in the Northeast Kingdom, are concerning, right? There's going to be a point at which there's not going to be any plumbers or electricians or nurses or doctors because there's just not a lot of young people, and there's also not a lot of places for folks to live. So increasingly we've been investing in workforce housing. We've purchased commercial buildings that we've flipped and put significant investment into. We purchased a building 560 Railroad Street in St. Johnsbury that now has 9 absolutely beautiful apartments. We don't do subsidized housing, it's market rate. I just think there's a need for that. We think there's a need for housing at all income levels, so it's not like we're against that. That's just not what we do. We've purchased basically an old mansion in Bethel, Maine. That's just come online. That's fully booked. We're building a neighborhood in Greenville, Maine. We've got 2 buildings in Upper Lake, New York. So a few in Elizabethtown. So and then maybe Newport, kind of keeping an eye on things. Like if there's the right opportunity to invest and the numbers can work out and the right grant, and if the stars align, potentially, like it'd be nice to be committed here at Newport. I believe we first kind of got involved in the Newport community via something we ran called the Rural Tourism Academy, RTA. So there was some of you may have been involved in that. That kind of was ending when I came on board about 3 years ago. But a great process, a lot of community input, like what are your hopes and dreams for Newport? As a result of that, the state of Vermont has a program called VOREC, the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Collaborative, and they had some grant money available. We suggested to Rick and his team, like, this is a really good opportunity for Newport. You should apply. And I would say in the work that Rick did in an incredibly short time frame to bring together, was it 12 partners, 10 partners? 11. 11, okay, I was right in the middle. Split the middle, that was good. Everything from Snowmobile Club to Memphremagog Trails to there was invasives removals, there was the startup of a sailing center. And this grant, the vision that was put out in that VOREC grant scored, I believe, higher than any other community in Vermont that applied for it. And that was based on the idea that this is incredible that you're able to get 11 people thinking the same way, with the same vision, with the same goal that's unified, that this town has incredible potential. I can say this now because I don't work for the town of St. Johnsbury. I was the rec director for literally 16 years and 10 months. My wife's like, you can't say 17 years, you're exaggerating. I'm like, sorry, right? But as a St. J resident for a very long time, anytime I drove up over the hill and I looked over this lake, even this morning, I don't know if you saw the light that I saw coming over that hill. This is incredible, right? So some things that we've done, again, the Memphremagog Greenway project was really cool. There was this Newport, boardwalk, and then there was the bike path, and there's the BB Spur. But I don't know about you, any time I ever hear about someone coming to ride a bike here in Newport, it's like, how do we get to the border and back? Like that's actually the route, but it's really 3 trails, but like for tourists, that's one experience, and it's a really cool experience. So we did that project, and I'm pretty proud of it, and I think you all should be. There was a lot of 7 a.m. meetings, a lot of 7 p.m. meetings, a lot of like, no, we don't like that design, scratch it, change the logo, do this, do that. But that kind of sparked a bigger vision for me, which was, what if we had a route that went all the way around Memphremagog, like an international gravel bike optimized route. So we wrote that into the VOREC grant, and I'm pleased to say the route's been finalized. I hired a team, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. We subcontracted them to put together this digital files for a map. We worked with Eastern Township Tourism Association and MRC Magog. Eastern Township Tourism Association told me 2 weeks ago they're setting aside a pot of money to market this route internationally. And I said, well, what do you mean international? They're like, Europe. And I was like, so FYI, there might be a lot of cyclists coming to this community in the coming year. So that's some of the things that we're working on. A big part of my job is I help manage a collaborative of 16 mountain bike networks called Bike Borderlands. So these range, again, our sort of territory, northern Maine to the Adirondacks. Kingdom Trails is a part of it. So in Vermont, we have Stowe Trails Partnership, Catamount Outdoor Center, Memphremagog Trails, Kingdom Trails. In New Hampshire, it's Franconia Trails, Parker Mountain Trails, Coos Trails, and White Mountains Nemba. In Maine, we have Inland Woods and Trails in Bethel, Maine, Carabasset Valley Trails, and then Moosehead Outdoor Alliance, which is up by Greenville, and then 3 more in New York. And so what we're all trying to do in Bike Borderlands is look at this region when people come here, instead of being like, okay, you know, the standard would come to Kingdom Trails for a weekend. Like, yes, and you should, because Kingdom Trails is incredible, but also come for a week and a half and drive around this entire region. And so when we talk about the Northern Forest, now we're, instead of just talking about Vermont or Maine or New Hampshire or Kingdom Trails, it's like the Northern Forest, branding that as a region, internationally, as a hotbed of outdoor recreation. That's my personal goal. So to be in the same conversation as like Moab or the Pacific Northwest or British Columbia. You think of those, you think sick mountain biking. Vermont, New England, this region should be on the map in the same way. And it pretty much is already. Folks are doing a great job. We just want to do better. Steve, I could say that we're seeing the same thing obviously in mountain biking this year. It's been things have been a little different. So a heck of a lot less French on the trails for sure. It's concerning. So we're trying to do the same thing. Like, how do we lean in? How do we get more local kids, families? How do we diversify the sport? So we're increasingly looking at things like lending libraries, gear libraries, supporting nonprofits that are doing things to like provide scholarships to teach new kids to bike. So a lot of stuff like that. So again, I've got annual reports here. Feel free to take a look at those to give sort of a bigger picture of the Northern Forest Center. So that's a smidgen of kind of like what we're doing. In terms of like what you can do, again, to Steve's point, think about what do people visiting your community want? What do they need? What are the services? And like think about the check boxes. A lot of trail-based organizations are doing a really good job of investing in new trails, maintaining trails. A lot of our work right now is in climate resiliency. So an 18-inch culvert doesn't cut it anymore. So we're working with groups like Natural Resource Conservation Service, looking at different grant funding from the feds. Culverts now become bridges become higher, they become wider, they become longer. We're making sure that all the outslopes are good. We're trying to put more money into maintenance. We're trying to support youth job skills programs, teaching young people. So anyway, a lot going on. What you guys can do, one, be welcoming. Yeah, that whole idea of like, hey Canadians, we love you. Come, even if it falls on deaf ears for now, it's an important message. Be welcoming to everyone. I'm gonna leave it at that. If people want to feel safe and welcome in your community. And then providing amenities, simple things like, for a cyclist in particular, like a water bubbler is a nice thing to have, like near your trailhead. One fill up one water bottle. The bike pump stations, bike racks, and then transportation safety stuff for pedestrians. Is your public works department like keeping the lines painted on crosswalks? Are the flashing beacons that tell that someone's in a crosswalk? When you think about where you want to go as yourself, as a tourist, when you want to go spend money, 9 times out of 10, I bet you go places somewhere you can walk. Like being able to walk around a community is very attractive. And the same with being able to bike around. So I'll stop talking. It's nice to meet you all. I appreciate being here.
Thank you.
Sure. We're gonna hold off on the questions till after Jake gets a chance to speak, and then hopefully we'll have time for a few questions. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And the third speaker is Jake Kuchar, and his wife Pauline own and operate a 440-acre diversified agricultural enterprise in Westfield, which is situated on the bank of the Missisquoi River, about 5 miles from the Canadian border. They've been farming since 1970. Since retiring from dairy farming last year, the farm focuses on hay crops, a few head of beef, forest products, and operates a bed and breakfast. Their maple sugaring operation consists of over 8,000 maple trees. He currently serves on other boards, including the Town of Westfield Select Board, Community National Bank, Cooperative Insurance Company. He also chairs the Upper Missisquoi and Trout Rivers Wild and Scenic Rivers Committee. So please give a hand for
Good morning. As he told you, I'm Jake Kuchar. Pretty hard act to follow the two previous speakers, but what they said really affects our business in a good way when they're successful. It brings people to town. So just going to tell my story. My wife and I bought my parents' farm in 1970. At that time, it was just a dairy farm milking 40 cows. And early, and I hope that's not my fault. Early in our farming career, the UVM folks had said the success of a dairy farm, of a farm, is to take inventory of what your land has that can offer some income to it. Don't depend on the cows to make cover all the expenses when you have a couple hundred acres of forest that might be able to also. So anyways, long story short, we got into the maple sugaring business in a small way a couple of years after, year and a half after we were farming. And so our business plan was never to become a big farm like you see some around. The size of our farm served us very well over the years. Early on, the financial part of it was always a struggle. A little later as we grew the dairy a little bit and the maple, we eventually transitioned to organic, and which made a tremendous difference on the cash flow for us. It was a very positive experience. I'm now 75, and so is my wife, and as you just heard in the introduction, we phased out of dairy a little over a year ago, and now we focus only on the maple and the maple sugaring. We make 2,500 plus gallons of syrup every year, and we market it all through our business. We have a farm store, and actually about 80% of our sales are mail order. We also started a bed and breakfast. After our 6 kids grew up and moved out of the house, we got all these rooms. Pauline always had this desire to start a bed and breakfast, which we did. So anyways, long story short, to operate a bed and breakfast in this part of the community, we depend on the folks that come to visit, JP, the bike trails and what have you. And one of the questions we always hear from those people when they book is, what else is there to do here while we're here? A majority of our clientele is during the ski season, so they're skiing, and after skiing they come back. And then a lot of our clientele are not necessarily bed and breakfast folks. So once they get off the mountain, they drive around. Kind of interesting that Steve says, if you want to get their business, you need to be open when they get off the mountain. For us, it's pretty easy. We live where our business is, so we don't turn the lights off until we're, after dinner. So quite often we get skiers that are riding around. They'll stop and pick up some maple products. They might come here or some of the other places to eat. So we depend on tourism a lot to make our business successful. I think I could probably work better answering questions. Not a long-winded speaker, but you get a little picture of what one little family operation is doing in this part of the kingdom. Our roots are deep here. We love what we're doing. We see people all the time. I'll just tell you one little story that we had. Some people that had stopped, they were actually staying, they had rented a place on Caspian Lake. They had 3 little kids, and they were riding around. They stopped to buy some maple products, and they heard some cattle moving, so asked if they could go see the cattle, and I brought them in a barn, and they, cut the calves and so on. And after they left, a few days later, we get this nice note in the mail. They said, we spent a lot of money on this cabin on Caspian Lake. Our kids were bored stiff the whole time, and we stopped at your place for 45 minutes. It didn't cost us anything except for a few products they bought, and the kids haven't stopped talking about it. So the experience that We provide kind of de facto. I mean, we're not saying, oh, we're here to provide you an experience, but just by being who we are in this part of the world, it seems like we affect people in a good way, and we enjoy that. So, I mean, any questions? That's all I've got to really.
So we'll open up the floor for questions. And I guess we're gonna do it this way with Jake, since you're up here. If anyone have questions for Jake, and then we'll work in, and if anyone has anything for Joe, just let us know, and then Joe will have to come running up and take his place. So I'm open the floor for questions. We prefer you to come up and say the question, but we've been kind of lax on that today, so. Start, well, I have a question for you.
Okay.
How much of your business is with Canadians, and have you noticed some changes in that, and are you taking any actions to affect any changes in your business all around?
I guess a fair amount of our business is from Canadians. Both my wife and I are quite fluent in French, and sometimes that is a draw. When people come in and we can tell that they might be struggling a little bit with their English, we just go to French and it kind of, softens things up. We're still getting a fair amount of Canadian traffic because we're so close to the border and close to JP, but like you heard Steve say, there's definitely a drop in that. But I don't think that, our business numbers have stayed good. What we're not getting from Canadians, we're getting from, in very often, we only have 4 rooms for our bed and breakfast, so we usually get a lot more requests than we have rooms. So we haven't really felt that very much. We hear the pain that some people feel, what some of our country leaders are doing that's making their life a little more difficult. We always tell them we still love you, and they tell us they love us as well, but we're still getting a fair amount of that, and we're happy to get it.
Yeah, go. If you can introduce yourself and name it down.
Who I am. Hey, how's it going? Joe Soroviak. I just moved up about a year ago.
Where do you live now?
Orleans.
Orleans.
Over in Droughtland. How have you marketed yourself over the years? Where have you had success, and have you pivoted on that? Obviously, the internet's still bigger now.
Sure. So, after being in business for 56 years, we've never bought any mailing lists from anybody. We've always had a guest book in our store. People sign up, and we do an email list. We used to send out catalogs, but that's history. That's how we market ourselves. We just basically respond. I send out a communication a couple times a year to our mailing list.
Right.
So we've got about 5,000 people on our mailing list that we've never purchased. So, for instance, if you order maple products from us and send them to your brother or your uncle or what have you, they now know our product, they're now on our list. So that's how we market it ourselves. I mean, in times past, we used to buy it in some magazines, we buy ads, but we don't do that anymore whatsoever. It's all word of mouth, and if you sell a good product for what seems to be a reasonable price, you keep getting them back. You never own them.
Repeat business, right?
Repeat business.
Social media, Facebook, or whatever.
Mostly just email. I mean, we have a Facebook page, which is mapleshop/B&B. Some of that.
That's a good question. Just as a follow-up to that question, your email list, would it be possible for the chamber to reach out to you? Would you basically let the chamber access it as part of a promotional email system? With, of course, your discretion, you have the right to veto.
Yeah,
Can we talk about it?
We get requests all the time for that. We have never done that because we protect our mailing list. We tell our customers it's not going anywhere. However, somebody could put something on our Facebook page that would reach our customers as well. So you go to just Maple Shop, B&B, and we could say we're a member of this organization, and something like that. It's kind of indirect,
but not for solicitation for us to send out as a chamber, but for us to send you a document
that
from
we
the
can put
area.
on our sure, we're open to that.
Okay. Sorry.
Yes.
Woody.
Yes, hi, I'm Woody Page. I'm curious, are you looking to ever expand your business? You mentioned that you only have 4 bedrooms to rent out. Are you interested in?
So I told you I'm 75, right?
Yes. Or your children.
Yeah, so our children are not part of our organization. I mean, they've all got college educations and really good jobs where they are, and they love the farm's still the focal point. You know, we get our family get-togethers, but none of them have chosen to become farmers or to take over our business. We have a grandson that has some interest. He's a senior in high school right now in New Hampshire. We'll see what that brings, you know, but we don't have any ambitions to grow what we're doing. We're just kind of doing what we're doing, trying to do a good job with it. We enjoy what we're doing still. Now that we're not milking cows, that's taken you know, some people keep saying, oh, how's retirement? Well, I don't know, I still get up at 5 in the morning and work, and I still love it. But it gives us a little more freedom to travel. The hours don't need to be quite as fixed as getting up at 4 in the morning and make sure you're back home by 3, you know, for milking cows. I don't know if that's answering your question, but yeah.
Terry Lucas, one quick question. What percentage is mail order versus live people coming in?
About 80% mail order, 20% walk-ins.
And on walk-ins, do you know what the demographics are? Is it more skiers? Is it bikers?
During the winter, there's more skiers. We get a lot of bikers. We actually get bikers in our bed and breakfast. Last summer, we had a group of 4 guys that were biking the entire length of the state of Vermont on Route 100. You know, this kind of customers. Foliage season is extremely busy. That's not skiers. It's just people that are, you know, out enjoying it. And I hate it when I hear people say, oh, the foliage is not as nice this year as it's been other years. Just drive around a little bit. I had to go over skate the other day. Around home, it's getting kind of bare right now. Just a couple of days ago, I hit up Route 242 and you see the mountainside. Part of it is just incredible still right now. So, you know, that's our busy at this time of year. And a lot of those people are not staying in our bed and breakfast, but they're stopping to buy maple products. There seems to be something to do in people's minds. If they see the colors, they think maple syrup. Some people actually think we're making it at this time of year. Anything else? Yes.
Louise Bonvecchio, I'm a resident of Newport. Full disclosure, Jake's sister. But I'm really excited about what Joe said about the bikers coming, maybe from all over the world, and we hear Jake saying, I don't know how much longer we're going to do this, and we always have more demand than what we can do. I'm wondering who's thinking about where are they all going to stay? You know, where are the beds? Maybe you're thinking about it, you guys thinking about it. That's my concern. I mean, it's very exciting. We want them to come, but where are they going to stay?
Mm-hmm. That's a question down. We'll do Jake and then Joe. You want to talk about this too?
Well, you've already heard my end of it. We get quite a lot of that. And, you know, it's interesting not to deviate quite from your question, but a lot of our Canadian folks are really, really into biking. You know, it just, you know, in French, you know, they want to do their biking and where can we go biking? A lot more than the U.S. folks. But that doesn't, you know, answer your question completely, but we do get a lot of that clientele in the summer.
Joe, I'd like to.
Yeah, so for
Can you come up?
Yeah.
Joe, sorry.
Okay. All right. For the gravel route that we've mapped out, it's sort of been looked at. So it's 137 miles and 9,000 feet of climbing. That's a massive, massive one-day ride. It is doable, and I intend to do it on the solstice this year. So I'll let you know how that goes. But for most people, for most people, that's probably a 3-day, 2-night trip. And so the way that we're looking at marketing this is either it's, you know, you start at Prouty, so we're thinking this is more for bike packers. People that are lightweight, you know, they've got their super lightweight sleeping bag, inflatable air mattress, and basically a bivvy shelter to sleep in. Like that, and there's a huge market for that, and these are people with time and money, right? So they're just like, well, my bike and just ride. Like, so it's a very good clientele to have. And they like quality and they like authentic experiences. This is a market that like wants local cheese, organic food. You know, they nice locally made maple syrup. Get to know the farmer who made the syrup. Get to know the farmer who makes the cheese. Yes, sir.
I am not qualified to do this, but I worked for a lady who had 10 hotels hotel room in a tent. And she had it for a couple days, broke it down, moved to the next site.
Yeah, that's,
I'm not volunteering to do it. I'm just saying, that's,
I,
set up the tents, break it down in the winter.
yep, so there's absolutely, there's a place, there's a lot of them. There's one called Hub North in Gorham, New Hampshire, and they call it like, there's a glam ground. So they have yurts, and they're nice, right? So they actually have a bed, a mattress, and so for a cyclist like that, that's great. It's sort of a camping experience, but I don't have to bring all that other stuff, and I can roll in and it's raining, and I just open the canvas, and I'm in there and I sleep, and pack up and go on to the next one.
So, as a follow-up, when you're marketing these events out
Yeah.
there, is there a way that local businesses and organizations from here can help piggyback onto those marketing things
Yeah.
to try to, and
Yeah.
can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, so I will say it's tricky. So for the first iteration of this map, this route, the way that we're gonna market it, it's basically gonna be like, this is a village center and there'll be an icon for like camping or lodging is available. We decided, and this is a little controversial, we're not gonna put individual business names or addresses or phone numbers on this particular thing, but we will link to the chamber or to the whatever, so if you wanna learn more about where in town to camp here. Because businesses change hands, hours change, seasons change, it's really important to us that the information that we get out to people is really good, so it's gonna be a lot more about, this is the route, here's the village, here's a link to learn more, here's a QR code, do your research, but here's some opportunities. Like some of the staples, yeah, Proudy will be on there. So the sort of south end, you have Proudy, the very north end is Orford National Park. So in terms of camping, we kind of have that covered, and there's your maybe 2-night stay. Things get a little tricky with the reduced hours for the border. It's the way the route we have set up are the smaller border crossings, right? It's BB and North Troy, which I think is 8 a.m. So I actually had a day this summer where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go attempt this route, I'm just gonna do it, and I realized that I couldn't. Because I wanted to get full daylight, and I ride in the dark, I'll put a headlamp on. I was willing to start at 4 a.m., but if I started at 4 a.m., I'd be at the border crossing before it was open. And that would ruin like the whole attempt. So our recommendation for people that do want to attempt this thing in a day is actually start in Quebec, which benefits because if you time it right, you're coming through Newport at a mealtime, right? So like you're gonna come in at lunch, or you're gonna come in at dinner. So the economic possibilities are a little higher. So, yes.
It's Newport. Are you aware that there was a race around the entire lake? It stopped just before COVID.
Oh, I did not know
It
that.
was called the Moose. It's
Great.
still part of it exists on this side. It was done as one day. It was certainly not as ritzy as what you're proposing, and I'm not knocking that. But know that so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's certainly been a lot of work done on this. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so the Moose, that's over on the eastern, where they go through Island Pond.
That was the second day.
Okay.
It was a 3-day event.
Nice.
And now it's just a 1 day. It didn't actually happen this year, but it has. But the part around the lake was for several years until COVID.
Yeah, and this route is a little different because we're focusing specifically on gravel roads. So we're focused on as much, so 65% of the route is dirt roads.
You still might not want to totally reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
The bicycle.
Any other questions, Frank? Awesome.
One more.
For Jake?
You mentioned that you fill up because you're small. Do you have a network of referrals when you fill up and someone says, well, I can't come up at another time, but where should I go?
Yeah,
And-
well,
and-
I don't know if you call it a network, but we've got a few names of other B&Bs that we know about that we refer people to.
And they do the same for you.
Yeah, we get a little bit of that,
So that would be the kind of thing that I think the chamber might help with in terms of having this.
And we're working on that as we're going along. The chamber is still a work in progress. I do have a follow-up question for Joe on the housing development and housing. Can you talk a little bit about any potential things in Newport, that opportunities that might be available, or if something comes up, how, we could get in touch with you or the mayor and try to prod them forward, or anything we can do to help?
I think what I would say is the mayor, the good mayor right here, and our team are in very close contact and have some ideas, but there are a lot of stars that need to align. And so we have, very generally speaking, so we serve, again, a 4-state region. So way northern Maine to northern New York, giant territory. But in that territory, we have 10 towns that we call our focal communities that we're like particularly invested in. And Newport is one of those 10. And at present, we do not have a housing project in Newport, and we would like to change that. I'll just leave it at that.
So with the mayor.
Yes. Yes.
So your housing projects that you have in the Northeast Kingdom, I know last month they mentioned that houses are 20% higher here than the rest of the state. Are you finding that to be true? And also, what's the cost per square when you do buy these houses that you're building?
I am not qualified to give an answer. I'll be honest, I'm the outdoor rec guy, I'm not the housing guy.
I heard you talking about housing.
Yeah, so organizationally, that is a big part of our work. It's just not personally, it's not my department. I can try to get you those numbers though. I would say that every project is different based on what the project is. We're just doing now our first ever new construction. So we're actually building a neighborhood in Greenville, Maine. And then we bought 2 properties in Tupper Lake. One is a rehab, and one we ended up being like, oh, we have to tear that down and start over. So we actually don't have any numbers on final finished product for new construction. I will say that yes, everything is way more expensive than it was 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months ago, 24 months ago.
Up here is apparently 20% higher than the rest of the areas.
In terms of like
cost.
Going rent, yeah. That may be accurate. I'm honestly not sure.
On your website as well, if I want to look at them, I'm assuming there.
Yeah, feel free to grab a copy of the annual report, and I can give you my business card and connect you with the folks that
I kind of have a follow-up.
could answer more. Yes.
Mike Morin, who works for the Northern Forest Center, is also on Newport Downtown Development's Housing Committee and is helping us. So if you want to talk to someone who's specifically working in Newport, who's also with the Northern Forest Center, Mike Morin is working with us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Doug?
Is that, not put you on the spot, but is it done through investors? It's obviously.
So we have
It's a nonprofit,
Just
that section of it?
Yep, so our organization is a 501c3 nonprofit, and our projects are a pretty impressive stack of all kinds of different funding. In some cases, there might be historic tax credits, there might be downtown development credits, there might be just charitable giving, there may be state grants, there may be federal grants, but more and more we have impact investing. So we have something called the Northern Forest Fund for qualified investors. You can check that out. So the division is basically folks will invest in us into the projects. A lot of times we'll hold on to a property for say 5 years as it's the owner, right? We collect rent, we use that rent, pay back our investors, and then move on to the next project.
I was just going to ask about your funding. You've mentioned a little bit of it. How much do you get from the state regarding funding? And this is my opinion, I think the following year, a lot of that state funding may be a lot less than it has been in the past.
Yeah,
I was wondering, could you address that?
I can put you in touch with someone who can tell you dollar for dollar every project that we've done. I can't recite those numbers off the top of my head. And in terms of the future, I think, yeah, simply put, the future is a big wild card right now. And so we're just trying to do our best to be responsible with our money, deliver good projects, and try to keep the faith of local government and foster those relationships with people at the state, local, regional level.
What do you think the percentage of federal money, state money, donations and grants are in your organization? If you had to break it down.
Again, off the top of my head, I can't answer that, but the figures, at least for 2024, are in the annual report on the, please feel free to take a look. Any other questions?
Any other questions for either him or Jay? We're actually going to get done a few minutes early, so I want to, let me go. It's been one of those days. I'd like to thank you all for coming, but I'd also like to especially thank our speakers, Joe Fox, Jay Kuchar, and Steve Wright. I'd like to thank especially again, Spates Family LLC for sponsoring this breakfast. Again, I'd like to thank the East Side for the excellent food, Rotary, the Chamber, the media, and Todd Pronto with NEK-TV. And when's the next meeting?
So our next breakfast will be November 17th. It's the third Monday of every month going through December. We are very excited about the next upcoming breakfast, so thank you all for coming today. Please come back. We're really looking forward to more of these types of conversations that are going to help build the economy around here.
And I'd like to also thank Kate. She actually does all the legwork. I just come in at the last minute and do introductions and stuff. So thank you, Kate, very much.